Florida man paralyzed by cop and charged. Family, a Florida mom's plea for help ended up with her son paralyzed after being shot by Miami police. After Donald Armstrong's arraignment, civil rights attorney Ben Crump briefly described what happened on March 7th.
Miss Denise called for help for her son, who she feared was having a mental health crisis. She only wanted to get him help. She did not expect for him to get 6 bullets in his torso. Why is it when black people having a mental health crisis and all they need is a helping hand from law enforcement, they get force, excessive force, 6 bullets. You look at the video for yourself and you decide for yourself whether this was justifiable or not. If you wanted to show them what not to do when trying to deal with a mental health crisis, but yet to cover it up, they are now charging him with a crime while he's with a colostomy bag, unable to walk, handcuffed to the hospital bed right where Smith the whole time with guard outside the door. I mean, you paralyzed. What's the flight risk? You shoot me, you paralyze me, then you handcuff me to a bed. I mean, it's insult on top of injury. And that's why we're demanding that these charges be dropped.
Now, we have the video an onlooker shot during the incident. What you are about to see is disturbing and triggering. Now is the time to look away or walk out of the room.
What happened? They shot him dead. They killed him there.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Armstrong was arraigned on aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer and resisting arrest without violence charges. Going back to our panel, Dr. Walker, it's like every day. And it seems as like it doesn't matter whether it's body cam, whether it's onlooker video, in some way, shape, or form, these stories are continually brought to us in America. And it seems like the burden to kind of prove our innocence is continually placed on us. How do you process what you just saw?
There is no way to process. This is racial trauma. And what makes it more disturbing for me is I live in the state. And these incidences are all too real. And you know, it's interesting when you have conversations with colleagues and events like this happen, they think that somehow you're disconnected, that this doesn't impact you. But, you know, not only, you know, me, but as a father. And, you know, this is unfortunately part of our, you know, history in America in terms of, you know, when law enforcement, you know, officers. And it's not just about training. It's about we got to have a really honest conversation about racial bias. And when people see, you know, black women and black men, that they automatically think that they're violent intentions. This brother had a mental health crisis. His family called for help, and they nearly killed him. And as you mentioned earlier, he's in a hospital and he's been shackled to a bed and he's paralyzed. And this is how black people in this country are dehumanized. And somehow he's treated as some kind of Superman who has the ability to heal himself and walk out of that hotel room. Out of the hospital. And once again, this is just another example of not just poor training, but part of this deep-seated issue of structural racism in the United States, and particularly as it relates to, you know, the disproportionate rate in which black folks are killed by law enforcement nationally. And this has happened for years.
I hear you. I hear you. And Dr. Ali, you know, we talk so much about people who want to talk about defunding the police, and so many of us who were part of that conversation, it was never about, for many of us, taking all money from the departments. It wasn't about defunding the police. It was about pre-funding the community so that we can have the type of assistance needed when families are having crises like this. It shouldn't lead to us dying, us being put in situations where we're almost paralyzed and maybe will not walk again. Can you talk about how you see this from the perspective of the needs of the community that could help us prevent situations like this from happening, including funding needed for proper officer training or other professionals who can help intervene in situations like this?
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you for framing it in that direction, because people often think when we were talking about redistribution of funds that we were automatically talking about just getting rid of police. And that wasn't it. It was about making sure that we are directing resources to the solutions that we know actually work, and making sure that communities also have the resources they need to better be able to frame out what law enforcement looks like inside of their respective communities. When we talk about protect and serve, that means that the serve aspect means that you are listening to the individuals who you are inside of their communities. So let's also put this into context for folks. Over 100 people are killed by police every month. I did not say got shot by police. 100 people are killed every month by police in our country. So that tells you that we have something that's not working when the lives are being lost. And then when we unpack that, we know disproportionately that it is Black folks and sometimes brown folks and indigenous folks who are the ones who are losing their lives prematurely. We also know that there are solutions that folks have been able to implement that actually work. So in certain cities, they are making sure that there are mental health practitioners who are showing up to these types of incidents, and the police can be there also. But the mental health individuals, those practitioners, are the ones who get to take the lead. They're the ones who help to de-escalate the situation. They're the ones that help folks to understand what the individual may be going through. And so if we're serious about helping individuals, when we say protect and serve, if we're serious about that, then that means that we have to begin to bring into the sets of options, having one of the first ones being having those mental health practitioners making the first sets of actions to be able to help people to bring things down, to de-escalate the situation. But if we're not serious about that, then what we will continue to see are Black bodies piling up in communities across our country.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And Dr. Malveaux, I know that there's the visceral reaction to what we're seeing, but in your current research, you're talking about the history of lynching in this country. Connect the dots for us in terms of what we're seeing. It's not new.
You know, Omokongo, it's not new at all. And when you ask our brother how he processed it, I literally had I started shaking when I watched the man being shot so many times. My body just started shaking. I said to myself, don't let him come to me first, because I might start crying. Richard Wright, who wrote Black Boy, said in 1930-something, he said, if there is a lynching in Mississippi, I can feel it in Chicago.
That's right. What
that means is that all of us who are of African descent and who watch that, we've been traumatized. It didn't happen today, but lynching culture says that white people can do whatever they want to Black people, whatever they want, and experience no consequences. And that's what lynching was about. It was about intimidation. It was about fear. If I could just say one thing to Black mothers, fathers, don't call the police on your child if they're having a mental health crisis. Call somebody else. And that's why Mustafa's point is so important. There needs to be, everybody is going through mental health crises in these United States these days. We keep hearing about it. Well, white folks go shoot something up. Oh, they were having a mental health crisis. When Black folks act out, they get shot. Mental health crisis. So why don't we have emergency mental health teams to, as opposed to calling the police who are coming with guns and tasers and all that stuff, why not have people come with the skill set to talk people down, to deal with them, perhaps to medicate them if that's necessary, but not to kill them. That woman did not intend for her son to be shot, shackled shackled to a hospital bed, as if he's going to get up from the bed and walk away. It's so humiliating, but it is in part. And thank you for the question, because it gets me going thinking. But it's part of the continuum of lynching culture, which started in enslavement, but peaked in the early 20th century, where white folks could not stand for black folks to be self-actualized. When we had property, we were lynched. We opened stores that competed with them, we were lynched. When there's one lynching on Congo, I think I told you about it before, about this brother was walking down the street, white woman bathing in the window. Now, why is the heifer bathing in the window? I mean, really? And he was lynched for looking in the window. Well, he wasn't looking in the window. He walked by. He was walking by down the street. They lynched him.
I remember that story, yeah.
So they would lynch us for anything. They lynched another brother who, random white woman, asked him to run an errand, and he said no. They had no relationship. She didn't work for her, but he said no, and so they lynched him. And so lynching culture says it is a reinforcement of the myth of white supremacy. And that you showed us, I mean, I'm still a little emotional because it was just too much. It was way too much, but it's always too much. And they got away with it being too much because we have been consistently dehumanized. So when people get a little antsy about defund the police, how about fire them all and start over? And start over, because many of them just believe they get to do this stuff. So we talk about defund the police, hire some social workers who can come out and do some of this stuff. If you have to fire a cop to get a social worker, oh well. I mean, this, as I said, I'm still sitting here somewhat trembling and thinking of what Richard Wright said. When we have a lynching in Mississippi, we can feel it in Chicago. Every black person who just saw that felt some kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And how could we not? And that's the point, right? And the point also is just to get more people across the country to feel what we feel. And it won't happen until we keep speaking up. So I thank you all for your comments on that.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.